Let's just jump right in, shall we? You know that physical thing between your ears? That's your brain. But here's the crazy part. It's also you. It's the source of your mind, your personality, your consciousness, your whole sense of who you are. So in this explainer, we're going to get to know the master in charge a little bit better.
But first, let's start with a really strange idea. I mean, it sounds kind of nuts today. What if I told you that I could figure out your entire personality just by feeling the bumps on your head?
You know, back in the early 1800s, a German physician named Franz Joseph Gall was absolutely convinced this was true. This was his thing. He would spend his time just running his fingers over people's scalps, believing he was literally reading the secrets of their character.
He called his theory phrenology. And what's amazing is that this pseudoscience got wildly popular. I mean, for decades, people bought into the idea that the shape of their skull told the story of their mind. We now know, of course, that it's complete and utter nonsense.
But here's the twist. While Gall was totally 100% wrong about the bumps, he accidentally stumbled upon a massive revolutionary idea, an idea that's now the foundation of all modern neuroscience. And that is, different parts of the brain do control specific parts of who we are and what we do.
And maybe the most dramatic and, let's be honest, pretty gruesome proof of this idea didn't come from some fancy lab experiment. No, it came from a horrific accident on a railroad construction site. And it involves a man named Phineas Gage.
So, meet Phineas Gage. Back in 1848, he was a respected, well-liked railroad foreman, just a normal guy. But what happened to him next is almost unbelievable, and it gave us the first real, solid evidence that damaging one specific part of the brain could literally change who you are as a person.
So there's an explosion, and this massive iron rod, we're talking 13 pounds, shoots straight through his head, through his cheek, and out the top of his skull. And the craziest part, he survived. He could walk, he could talk, he remembered everything. But the man who came back wasn't the same man his friends and family knew.
The change was just staggering. See, the old Gage was a good guy, mild-mannered, friendly. The new Gage, after that iron rod tore through the front part of his brain, was mean, foul-mouthed, and just unreliable. His friends said it best, he was no longer Gage. The body was there, but the personality was gone, wiped out by a physical injury.
Okay, so the story of Phineas Gage really drives home how physical our personality is. But our understanding of the brain has been cluttered with a lot of myths over the years, Things that just seem to stick around. So let's take a quick second and bust a few of the biggest ones.
You have definitely heard this one before. It's in movies all the time, right? The idea that we only use a tiny fraction of our brain, like 10%, and if we could just unlock the rest, we'd become some kind of superhero. Yeah, it's a great plot for a movie, but in reality, it's totally false. Modern brain scans, like fMRIs, show that almost your entire brain is humming with activity pretty much all the time, even when you're just, walking across the room or having a simple conversation.
And just think about it from an energy standpoint. Your brain is only about 2% of your body weight, but it uses a massive 20% of your body's energy. From an evolutionary perspective, it makes zero sense for our bodies to pour that many resources into an organ we're barely even using.
So what about that whole left-brained versus right-brained thing? Creatives are right-brained, logical people are left-brained? Well, that's another myth. Sure, some functions are more dominant on one side, but the two hemispheres are in constant, deep communication. Saying you're a right-brained creative is really just our generation's version of phrenology.
All right, now that we've busted some myths, let's get to the main event. It's time to go on a little tour inside your skull. We're going to explore the brain from its oldest, most basic parts, all the way up to its newest, most complicated layers.
So the best way to think about how the brain is structured is to picture one of those Russian nesting dolls. You've got the tiny doll on the inside, that's the oldest, most primitive part. Then you have a bigger doll that fits over it and a bigger one over that. Evolution literally built newer, more complex brain systems on top of the older ones.
So here's our roadmap. We'll start with what we call the old brain, the part that just handles basic survival. Then we'll move up to the emotional brain, the limbic system. And we'll finish our tour with the new brain, the cerebral cortex, which is responsible for all the high-level thinking that really makes us, well, us. Okay, first up, the old brain. This is that innermost doll, the foundation for everything. It's got the brainstem, which is basically your body's automatic life support system. It takes care of your heartbeats, your breathing. You don't even have to think about it.
Tucked in the back is the cerebellum, which means little brain, and it's so important for balance, movement, and muscle memory.
Now let's open up to the next layer. This is the limbic system, our emotional brain. This is where some of our most primal feelings come from. You've got the amygdala, which lights up with fear and aggression. You've got the hypothalamus, which manages things like hunger and our pleasure-reward system. And you have the hippocampus, which is absolutely crucial for forming all of your new memories.
And finally, we get to the outermost doll, the big one. That wrinkly surface you always see in pictures, that's the cerebral cortex, our new brain. It's split into 4 main parts, or lobes. Right behind your forehead are the frontal lobes. They're like the CEO, handling planning, judgment, and, as we saw with Phineas Gage, your personality. On the top, the parietal lobes process touch. In the back, the occipital lobes handle vision. And right above your ears, the temporal lobes process sound.
So we've toured the hardware, we've seen how all these different parts have their own special jobs, from keeping you alive to letting you understand a joke. But now it's time to connect all of that biology back to the biggest question there is.
What exactly is this thing we call the mind? You know, our consciousness, our memories, our feelings. Where does your sense of you actually live?
Well, neuroscientists have an answer that is so simple and yet so profound. The mind is what the brain does. That's it. Every thought, every emotion, every spark of personality, it's all the result of an incredibly complex dance of biology and chemistry happening inside your head.
And that leaves us with one last really powerful question to think about. If you are the product of your brain's physical structure, just like Phineas Gage was, what does it mean for who you are when that biology changes? Whether it's from an injury, a disease, or maybe someday even technology. It's something to think about, isn't it?